Trenton, are you okay?
I think I'm having an identity crisis.
Oh no, you're not still torn about what cereal you like more, right?
Hey, there are different types of texture and crunch. But no, that's not it. Lately, it's like people think of me one way when I see myself another.
You sound just like Miles Morales from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
What do you mean? I got bit by a spider and that's why I'm feeling off?
No, silly. What I mean is Miles Morales may seem like a regular kid to some, but he's also Spider-Man. He has multiple identities.
Right. But I'm not Spider-Man.
I know. I know. It's just an analogy. But what you're feeling is actually really normal. Identity can change whenever we face new challenges and experiences. Let me tell you more. Identity includes anything from our beliefs, likes, dislikes, and education, to our race, gender, and sexuality. It's an important part of who we are, from how we see ourselves to how others view and treat us. Personally, I'm biracial, half black, half white. I'm an only child, I'm independent, I love music and singing, and I'm in a band. Those things are part of my identity. While some of my hobbies or goals might change over time, those core traits will always be true. It's kind of like baking. If you don't include certain aspects or ingredients in the recipe, you won't get the whole me.
Kind of like the time I forgot to mix eggs in Billie Jenkins' birthday cake. That thing did not look edible.
Yeah, leaving out the eggs was not your best move. But not all cakes follow the same recipe. Just like people's identities are made up of different ingredients. Any combination of these ingredients or identities can influence how people are treated, what education and jobs they get, where they live, and what challenges they face. That's where intersectionality comes into play.
Hold up, I did not know roads had anything to do with identity.
No, that's an intersection. Intersectionality thinks about how multiple identities like race, gender, and class fit together and impact how a person experiences power, privilege, and oppression in their everyday lives. If we're thinking in terms of intersectionality, we might consider the identity of a working class, female identifying person of color and how that influences their experiences and challenges they face. American lawyer and civil rights activist Kimberly Crenshaw first coined the term intersectionality in her 1989 essay to describe the experiences of Black women. As a lawyer, Crenshaw investigated how the legal system treated race and sex discrimination claims, finding out that judges routinely denied Black women's discrimination claims. These lawsuits claimed that employers were treating them unfairly because of their race, gender, or religion. Crenshaw eventually argued that people must think about race and gender at the same time to understand the experiences of Black women. Before her essays, people couldn't admit that Black women's experience was different from a white woman who experiences sexism alone or a Black man who experiences racism alone.
Wow, it's hard to believe that people ever thought of identity separately. I mean, I'm so many things. I'm African American, a brother, a son, a science nerd, an animal lover, and beauty and brains of the family.
Whoa, 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 let's not get too ahead of yourself. But I like where you're going though.
Hey, it was worth a shot. But anyways, was Crenshaw the first person to talk about intersectionality?
I'm glad you asked, but unfortunately that part of history is often erased. Crenshaw may have been the first person to coin the term, but people have observed the concept for more than a century and a half. As early as the 1800s, Black feminists acknowledged that their experiences were different from white women. In her speech, Ain't I a Woman?, American abolitionist Sojourner Truth noticed that men treated white women differently from Black women, even though they were the same sex. Her speech ended up being one of the earliest examples of intersectionality. The concept made even more headway during the second wave of feminism in the 1960s. During that period, the women's rights movement was happening at the same time as the civil rights movement. However, many white feminists were putting their goals ahead of others, addressing sexism without acknowledging how racism affected women of color at the same time. Their silence pushed Black feminist thinkers to create a movement that valued Black women specifically. Black feminist thinkers like Angela Davis, Toni Morrison, and Alice Walker have all helped others consider how gender, race, class, and sexuality overlap.
I had no idea that intersectionality stretched that far back into history. It's great to hear that's becoming more of a buzzword though, and I guess that leads me to my last question. How can I support people with multiple identities today?
You're not the only one who's asked themselves that question. Lucky for you, I've got just the resource. According to Womankind Worldwide, there are a ton of ways people can practice intersectionality. For one, you can consider what privileges you already have or do not have. Thinking about every aspect of your identity is an important step towards understanding how you experience the world. Secondly, you can listen to others and include them in the conversation. It's important to hear about other people's experiences, but remember that it's not their job to teach you about their lives.
So it's kind of like being in the know. You're not going to know the history of baking unless you take time to look into it.
Exactly, except instead of baking, it's understanding others' experiences. That's why it's important to do your own research and take on some of that responsibility. That said, you should avoid speaking for others. Instead, consider when it's best for you to speak up and when others deserve the spotlight. Almost like choosing when to shoot and when to pass the ball to a teammate in basketball. You don't want to hog the ball or the spotlight. And last but not least, think before you speak. How will your words affect others with different identities? Recognizing when something is insensitive or offensive is the first step towards adjusting your language.
Think before you speak. My mom says that to me a lot, but now I can see how it could really have an impact on others.
Yep, when we practice mindfulness, we can move away from thinking that puts one identity above another. Understanding how identity shapes our beliefs and experiences allows us to become allies and empathize with people who have different identities.
I'm all for empathy. Miles Morales, I'm here for you. Spider side, human side, I'll be your ally.